Hey guys again. We're going to do just a quick little video about allelic morphs in ball pythons specifically. They exist in, other species as well, but we're only going to talk about ball pythons because those are really the only ones that I have. So, getting things rolling, probably the most iconic, at least like overall in general, the most iconic or well-known allelic animal is the blue-eyed leucistic. So, the blue-eyed leucistics in ball pythons, at least, are generally a super form of what's called the blue-eyed leucistic complex. And so, when we talk about the super form, we've talked about that before with the incomplete dominance being these individual traits that when you put them together, they make the complete homozygous or the super form, and that which makes the blue-eyed leucistic. And so in ball pythons, everything in the bell or the blue-eyed leucistic complex are butters, Russos, Mojaves, Lessers, and several other pythons that when you put them together, they will make a solid white leucistic, or leucistic, I guess is actually the technical way to pronounce it, a leucistic animal with blue eyes, because what affects the patterns on there when we talked about it on a previous video about leucism and versus albinism also affects their eye color, which is why they have blue eyes. But there are quite a few other types of allelic animals, and so I guess I didn't really do a very good job of actually explaining what allelic is. So the allelic animal is an animal where two incomplete dominants and sometimes two recessive genes aren't exactly the same, but they share a DNA allele, so they share a little bit to where when you put the two together, they create what is essentially a super animal. So if you had a pastel and pastel and you make a super pastel, every single baby that animal will produce would have pastel in it. When you have an allelic animal like a blue-eyed leucistic or others, every single animal will pop out one of the two genes that will make it. So for instance, this blue-eyed leucistic is a Russo and a Lesser. Every single baby that it has is either going to be a leucistic or, not leucistic, a Lesser or a Russo, and then any other genes that are in there. This guy happens to be from a super leopard combo parent, so he has leopard in him, so there's gonna be leopard in his genes for whatever he pops out. But for sure, every single baby will be either a Lesser or a Russo. Now, this is another type of leucism, but this allelic animal is an ivory. Specifically, this guy is a banana ivory, but the ivory is the allelic form, or in fact, it's actually a super form of a yellow belly. So I guess this isn't technically an allelic animal, but this is going to come into play in just a second when I bring up the next morph. So the yellow belly is an incomplete dominant trait that looks pretty much just like a regular ball python. It's a little bit different, as a really clean white underside. And the super form of that makes this ivory, which is very similar to like a super fire, which is a black-eyed leucistic, and it's very similar to that. But in the yellow belly, in the yellow belly complex, there are quite of other animals that have been around for a long time that make some other really cool animals. So along with yellow bellies, there's a spark and a specter. Those animals, when you put them together with yellow belly, they'll make other things like pumas and super stripes, which look really cool. I just don't have any of those, so I'm going to bring out this little guy to say that some of them end up looking very similar to this. Only with the super stripes and pumas, they can look a little bit differently, but they all kind of have similar things where they end up having like these dorsal stripes that go down, which are more apparent in ivories when they're younger, and the camera's not going to show it, but they do have kind of a faint striping that goes down there. But these other ones have there too. And so I talked about the ivory because the one I'm going to show you next is the allelic animal that's probably become most famous recently, that is very, very popular, but is in the yellow belly allelic complex. As I said before, this is the allelic animal that's probably become the most popular or most well-known in recent times, and that is the highway ball python. So this little girl is a pastel highway, so there's one additional gene in there which lightens it up. So this is a allelic combo of the yellow belly and a gravel. The gravel looks very similar to a yellow belly, just like a spark is very similar. And there's another one called an asphalt, which is also very similar. But when you combine those, it creates more of a yellow snake, but it still has a very defined, usually solid dorsal stripe. When you add the pastel into there, it lightens it up. It makes them kind of more white background, which makes it closer to a yellow belly, and then it breaks it up a little bit more. But that is another allelic animal which has become very, very popular. And as I said before, there's the asphalts with yellow bellies make another really cool one just like that. But these guys are really, really cool, and I just think it's, it's another one of those fun things where we can talk about combining genes and stuff like that, and even some ones that are just very simple allelic super forms, I think may or may not even be a little bit more visually appealing than, stacking 5 or 6 genes into a single animal. And I'm going to bring out one more to round this one up, and it's another last up on this that we have, at least here at Jay's Reptiles, is a Mystic Potion. So this little guy isn't actually even ours. We're just babysitting him or pet sitting him right now for his owner who, with everything going on, is in shelter in place to kind of help take care of her parents. And so we're taking care of her animals right now. But we're going to bring him out a little bit just to talk about him because our Mystic Potion is potentially gravid right now. And I don't want to do anything to kind of stress her out. And as well, she also just ate as well. So we're going to bring out Prince here. So, as I said before, this is a Mystic Potion. So what that is an allelic combination of Mojave, which we talked about before, which is also part of the Bell complex, and a Mystic, which looks pretty similar to a Mojave. And when you put those together, you make this weird pattern that comes out this kind of purplish gray with this kind of neonish yellow pattern on the dorsal. When they're first born, it's a lot more evident, and then they kind of gray out as they get older. But they are really cool. There's another one that's very similar, which is called a Purple Passion, which is a mix, I believe, of a Mojave and a, oh Lord, I am spacing on that. But it's another one. We'll put it in there as well. But it's very similar to this. Argumentatively, the purple stays out longer. They usually don't have as defined dorsal striping as well. And there are more allelic animals than just the ones that we show today. Like there are Candinos, which is, I don't know if it's the only one. There's so many ball python genes these days. But it is one of the only recessive allelic ones. And so that's the candy gene and the albino gene, the regular albino. There's also lavender. But the regular albino, when you put those two together, you'll create a Candino. So if you have a Candino, every single baby will pop out albino or candy. Just keeping this one pretty quick today, guys. Just wanted to do a little bit more specifically about the allelic animals. Hopefully I did an okay-ish job explaining that. I know I didn't do the best right when we very first started. But so it's just kind of to wrap it up, the allelic animal is a super form or a complete homozygous form of 2 genes that occupy the same, that have the same allele strand on the DNA sequence. So they're not the same genetic morph, but they share enough to where they will create something that acts the same as a complete homozygous or super form that we call it in the hobby. And that's the Mystic Potions, Purple Passions, Candinos, and Leucistics and Highways and things like that. Hope you guys did get a little bit from this video, trying to keep them a little bit shorter, but still fairly concise and easy to understand. If you can please like and subscribe, please, 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 if you really can. I've said it before, I'll say it again, not trying to get famous. I just think that there's some pretty good information that I'm trying to share with people. In no way, shape, or form am I like a real expert. I just, put a lot of work and dedication into these things. And I want, to kind of spread that knowledge a bit, because it's pretty easy to just learn something very quickly, not have all the information, then you can end up being a detriment to your pet's health, which isn't something that you ever want. So an additional source of some good information out there, I'm always happy to help. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know down in the comments. Hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll check you next time.